What if I told you that firing 80% of a company wasn't a failure, but a breakthrough? What if I told you that ancient words written over 1,400 years ago are now being confirmed by modern science? This isn't just a story about leadership or faith or technology. It's about the brutal, brilliant collision between truth and comfort. Today we're diving into two seemingly different worlds, the high-stakes battlefield of corporate reinvention and the divine revelations that science is only beginning to catch up with. You'll discover why tough decisions aren't always cruel, how cutting deep can sometimes lead to healing, and how verses once recited in deserts are now echoing through laboratories and research papers. If you've ever felt stuck between fear and your future, if you've ever wondered why the truth often feels uncomfortable, and if you're ready to rethink what you thought you knew about success, purpose, and the universe itself, then stay with me till the end. Because what you're about to hear may not just change how you lead, it might change how you live. Let's begin. In a world where milliseconds can redefine market dominance and a single viral idea can rewrite billion-dollar industries, the harsh reality is that sentimentality has no guaranteed place in leadership. There's a time when businesses thrived on loyalty, tenure, and traditions. Those times are over. We live in the era of execution, where performance isn't optional, it's existential. This shift isn't about being cold or heartless. It's about aligning with a deeper, more brutal form of truth. Systems that fail to evolve must collapse so that something stronger, leaner, and more adaptive can emerge from the wreckage. When a massive platform, bloated with thousands of employees and silos of inefficiency, was handed over to a new kind of leadership, the first thing that happened wasn't innovation. It was silence. Awkward, resistant silence. The kind that signals denial. Layers upon layers of middle management, duplicate departments, aimless meetings, and redundant roles had created a culture where motion was mistaken for progress. But velocity without direction is chaos, and to fix chaos, someone had to hit the brakes, or better yet, reset the entire engine. Cutting 80% of a workforce sounds shocking to the untrained ear. It sounds cruel, brutal, unfair. But ask this. What is more brutal? Keeping a sinking ship afloat while burning investor money, user trust, and market momentum? Or is it more responsible to trim down, recalibrate, and pivot towards survival with speed and focus? The truth is, sometimes leadership means doing the one thing nobody else dares to do. To stop pretending everything is fine, and to treat inefficiency like a virus that must be eradicated. When you zoom into the anatomy of a large tech company before this disruption, what you find is stagnation. 10 people doing the job of 2, endless Zoom calls with no outcomes, dead projects being kept alive for political reasons, teams that exist simply to talk about what other teams are doing. That's not innovation, that's corporate theater. And in a world obsessed with convenience, entertainment, and speed, there's no room for theater anymore. There's only room for builders. So the workforce was cut, not by 10%, not by 30%, by 80%. The kind of number that shocks boardrooms, shatters headlines, and terrifies employees across the tech world. But behind the number was not emotion, it was math. It was energy conservation. When you try to build a rocket, every ounce of weight matters. Same goes for a company trying to soar in the attention economy. Every role, every department, every meeting, either it's propelling you forward or it's dragging you down. What followed wasn't a collapse. What followed was a renaissance. Product cycles that once took months were being completed in days. Engineers who were buried under bureaucracy were now shipping features at lightning speed. Costs were slashed. Focus returned. People weren't just working harder, they were working smarter, faster, and with more ownership. This wasn't chaos, it was clarity, forced into existence by decisive action. You can't get there by asking politely. Sometimes, to evolve, you have to disrupt yourself first. There's a law in physics. Systems tend toward entropy unless energy is applied. Companies are no different. Without a constant force pushing for efficiency, entropy takes over. Departments become kingdoms, processes become rituals, people start protecting their turf instead of solving real problems. The job of leadership then is to apply force relentlessly, unapologetically, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is death by comfort. In a corporate culture soaked in buzzwords like inclusivity, wellness, and work-life balance, it's easy to forget that businesses don't exist to create feelings. They exist to create value. Of course, empathy matters. Of course, people deserve dignity. But empathy without accountability breeds mediocrity. And mediocrity is the first step toward irrelevance. The 80% reduction wasn't about abandoning people. It was about reviving purpose, about asking the hard question, if we started from scratch, who would we need to actually build this platform better? Radical efficiency doesn't mean exploitation. It means alignment. It means every individual in the system is not just a name on a spreadsheet, but a living contributor to a mission. And when someone isn't contributing, or worse, when they're obstructing progress, the responsible choice isn't to accommodate them. It's to remove the obstruction, not out of malice, but out of duty to everyone else who's actually building. Think about how nature works. Evolution doesn't reward the strongest, it rewards the most adaptable. Species that failed to adapt weren't given therapy or second chances, they were erased. Harsh, yes, but that's how progress happens. And in business, especially in tech, the evolutionary cycles are even shorter. What was innovative 2 years ago is now irrelevant. What was profitable last quarter could be a liability this one. Survival depends on speed, speed depends on clarity, and clarity demands ruthless prioritization. The public understandably was shaken by the move. How could anyone cut that much so quickly? But the better question was, why was that much there in the first place? How did we get to a point where only a small percentage of employees were responsible for most of the output? Why was no one asking that before? Because no one wanted to look under the hood. Because facing inefficiency head-on means admitting the system is broken and that you were part of it. In a world where complexity is often mistaken for sophistication and busyness for productivity, radical. Efficiency stands as the most honest expression of leadership. Firing 80% of a workforce wasn't a mistake, it was a correction. It was the price paid for clarity, speed, and innovation. Real progress requires real courage, the kind that isn't swayed by sentiment, headlines, or tradition. In leadership, as in life, the path to greatness is often paved with uncomfortable decisions. You either evolve or you expire. And evolution never asks for permission. Thank you for your time, energy, and open mind. May you always have the strength to choose purpose over popularity, truth over comfort, and action over noise. Keep building, keep believing, and above all, stay bold. Good luck, and see you on the other side of transformation.